He said, "Oh, I hope I don't turn myself into a liberal if I drink this."
This isn't going to turn me into a liberal, is it?
And then off camera, there was a very funny quip from a reporter at the Star saying, "I think it's too late."
I've already been accused of being a liberal. Okay, sir. Well, they do accuse me. But anyways, here we go. Sorry, folks.
Welcome back to Closer Look across the Village Media Network and wherever you get your favorite podcast. I am the stuffed up Scott Sexsmith along with Michael Friscoletti, our editor-in-chief. Man, this thing is just hanging
a lot
on.
of S's, yeah.
It is a lot of S's.
Scott Sexsmith.
I know.
It's like four.
Like a clothespin is right here. That's what it sounds like.
You haven't infected the rest of us yet, so that's good.
Not yet. I wipe all the surfaces down, spray. We are safe in here.
I should wear a mask to tomorrow's episode.
You'd probably find a couple of N95s around here.
There's probably a couple.
I'm sure you could.
Did anyone even come in here during the pandemic? That was before my time. Was anyone in the office?
I think at one point when we started coming back, there was 4 or 5 of us in here. And it's like we each had our own wing of the building. Mm-hmm. You know, you'd be yelling to,
That's
talk
crazy.
to somebody.
All right, I don't want to talk about the pandemic.
Let's
move on. Did you see that headline? The headlines yesterday about the bread class action settlement?
Yes.
And people are getting scammed.
Of course they are.
It's Dave Turner's scam. There's 9 or 10 people. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, friend of the show, confirmed that
absolutely
that it was people were victimized by this. Jay Strasberg, who was on the show back in the day, he's the lead lawyer in the class action lawsuit, was warning people, hey, this is it's actually closed now. You can't sign up for the settlement anymore. But if you did sign up, if you listened to our show and you did sign up, apparently the payments could start coming as soon as next month.
Wow.
Whether it's $50 or a gift card, I don't know how it's going to work.
We'll find out.
But if you took the time to put in your email, it's too late now. So if you didn't do it, too bad.
All right.
But it could be $50. A lot of bread.
Just writes itself, doesn't it?
I know.
It really does.
You get your slice of the settlement stuff.
Oh, my God. Okay, let's segue to tonight's program. The Prime Minister and Premier Ford spending some quality time together yesterday in Toronto.
Yes, announcing billions more in funding to
They even shared a beverage.
Yeah, to help build houses and share a glass of water.
Yeah.
I've kind of lost track on the housing announcements. There's just so many, right? And everyone has a different idea of how we get the housing crisis under control and build more houses. But the one thing is for certain, in Ontario especially, housing starts are way down. There's a lot less housing being built. The Prime Minister and the Premier announced almost $9 billion in funding to help kickstart it. And the best guy to help us understand all of the ins and outs is Aidan Shamandi. He's one of our reporters at Toronto Today, covers City Hall. He was at the announcement. And this guy understands his beat as well as anyone in the country. So I'm excited to hear his take on everything.
Governments don't usually agree on housing policy this easily or this quickly, but yesterday, Prime Minister Mark Carney and Ontario Premier Doug Ford stood side by side to announce billions in new spending aimed at one thing, getting more homes built. At the center of it is a significant cut to development charges, a move they say will unlock stalled projects and get construction moving again alongside tax relief for buyers and new commitments on transit. It's a sweeping plan and an ambitious one, but it also raises some fundamental questions about who pays for growth and whether this is enough to meaningfully change the pace of building. Aidan Shamandi from Toronto Today was at the announcement, and he joins us tonight from Toronto. Aidan, welcome back to the show. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me again, fellas.
All right, Aidan, $8.8 billion, it's a big number. Is this a genuine turning point for housing supply or more of a short-term stimulus to unfreeze the market?
It genuinely could be long-term if the dollar figure grows and if the timeline on which funds are committed is sustained, because right now it is definitely geared towards a kind of short-term, let's get the market, particularly the condo market, unfrozen in the GTA, which, is the kind of locus of Canada's housing crisis. And I will just note that the federal and provincial governments have put up $8.8 billion, but it's still up to the cities to then cut their development charges to then get that money backfilled. So it's not like, today the development charges are cut. There still needs to be work done at the city level to kind of realize these changes.
that's such a controversial term that we hear in all of our communities across Ontario that we cover, development charges. Can you just give us a background for people who are listening, have no idea what that is or why it's so impactful to the cost of housing?
Yeah, so basically development charges are taxes charged on home building. The idea is that a developer will, fund growth related infrastructure such as transit, new roads, parks, recreation facilities. But these charges have been in place for decades, and they've really grown to encompass things that might not necessarily, to the average person, count as like growth related infrastructure. And the kind of central premise is that you're shifting the tax burden off of the property tax base onto new growth.
Mm-hmm.
But people who pay existing property taxes also benefit from things like new fire halls, new transit line, better roads. But cities don't have a lot of tools to raise revenue. Raising property taxes is really controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Property taxes don't scale with the economy like sales taxes do at the provincial level. So this really was a way for municipalities to be like, we don't have to charge our existing voters more property taxes to pay for this, like various forms of infrastructure and services. We can shift that burden on to home builders. And the result, decades later, we have seen is that these are a significant burden on home building and we get a lot less homes built.
Yes. And is it my right, Aiden, that what happens is they get charged these development charges and they just pass those on to the consumer who's buying the house? It just raises the cost of the house?
Yeah. It's basically like it's an input cost in the same way that labor, construction, materials are. It raises the floor for which a developer can profitably sell a home. And
it's controversial because of some of our communities, I think Burlington's one, where the city councils voted to lower development charge, and it's extremely controversial. Not everyone agrees with it. That's happening in a lot of communities right now.
Yeah, it's really become a talking point, especially since, coming out before the pandemic, but really coming out of the pandemic when the provincial government came out with this big housing affordability task force. That really got a lot of people kind of zoned in on development charges, and there was a really, really controversial bill from the province in 2022 that slashed the ability of municipalities to charge development charges, and it was like a two-year, 5-alarm fire. And then in 2024, the province was tired of taking flack on this and they completely reversed it. Just one quick note on what Burlington did, which I think is profoundly interesting and is not something that I have seen replicated at any other municipality really across Ontario, is development charges. It doesn't come out, the fee doesn't come out of nowhere. It's like, okay, we have X, Y, and Z new infrastructure project. We're going to attach, a $10 fee to project Y, $20 fee to project X kind of thing. And they come up with an overall figure. But what Burlington did was they went through their kind of study of all of the new infrastructure projects that they want to push forward and say, okay, this one has been on our books for 30 years. There's no way we can build it on our own. We need federal and provincial funding. The feds in the province have never said they're going to fund it, but we just slapped it on here and have been charging developers for this for God knows how long. So the mayor said, these projects that aren't likely to ever get built, we're going to take them out. And so it created a substantial reduction in development charges. And if that's a process that's replicated across Ontario, because there are a ton of these phantom projects in every city, then that is something that could see a substantial reduction. But that's kind of a side note.
That's a great story. For the record, we find you profoundly interesting, which is why we have you on the show all the time, because you know what you're talking about. Explain it is fascinating. And so basically this $8.8 billion plan is going to say, we're not going to let the developers won't have to pay that fee. We're going to pay that fee and make up the difference.
Yeah, because again, it gets back to the question of municipalities have an incredibly limited amount of tools to raise revenue. Sales taxes, income taxes grow with the economy. So the federal government doesn't need to raise taxes to raise more revenue because, through inflation and people making more, they get more tax revenue. Doesn't happen with property taxes. It's a static figure.
Aiden, there's a HST relief component as well. Can you speak to that for us?
Yeah, so that has been something that has kind of that's been an iterative process at both the federal and provincial level for a long time. HST 13% charged on home building. There was a proposal, I I can't remember how long ago, but it's basically started at, new homes for first time home buyers under 1 million. And that's like, well, how many new homes are there under 1 million? First time home buyers is not a lot of people. So it's just been the federal government and the province have kind of been engaging in like a tit for tat, where if you take your portion of the HST off for a slightly expanded pool of buyers, we will take our portion off. And so it's gotten to the point now where I can't remember the exact figures, but total HST, so all the federal and provincial, is taken off for homes, I believe, under 1 million. Doesn't matter if you're a first time home buyer or not. And then it kind of like scales up. The rebate is lower as you get to like 1.5 million. I believe it caps out at 1.85 million.
I think underneath all this that's going on is we keep hearing about how we're just not building enough houses, especially in Ontario. At least that's what I keep hearing, keep reading. How bad is it, Aidan? What were we supposed to be at, and where are we?
Well, I mean, supposed to be at is kind of like one of those kind of like let the market decide thing, right? It's like, if you have X amount of people, you should, I guess, have X amount of homes depending on family formation. But to put a figure on the number of homes that we're short is like, I mean, God, hundreds of thousands, hundreds of thousands. It actually has gotten better since the immigration cuts at the federal level, because immigration was obviously a huge kind of demand side pressure that came in really since 2015 and accelerating during the pandemic when we saw record levels of immigration growth. But the sign, I would say, of kind of a healthy market isn't necessarily how many homes are there relative to people. It's kind of what are homes and rents priced at relative to people's incomes. The general figure is about 30% of someone's income. So if your rent or your mortgage is not kind of taking up an exorbitant amount of your monthly take-home pay, I would consider that a healthy market.
Because that's where I think some people who don't understand all the issues and all the things that play here, they wonder, well, we keep hearing about how there's so many empty condos, for example, in Toronto. Yet we're helping to fund the development of more construction. How do you jive? How does all that jive?
Well, yeah, I mean, like the kind of main reason that there are all these unsold condos is getting back to that, there's a floor at which developers can sell for, because land costs a lot, labor costs a lot, materials, construction, all that stuff, and then development charges and like these kind of like planning application fees that you have to go through to get your housing project approved. Let's say that sets a floor of like $800,000. Like that's what it actually costs to build a home. A developer can't take a hit on that because it's a business. Businesses are, they're not charities, right? So if a developer cannot sell a unit for a profit, and no one is in a financial position or wants to buy, a house for a price that would earn the developer a profit, then we're not going to get anywhere. Developers can't get financing to build new stuff. No one moves, freeing up new units. And people just really can't afford it.
Aidan, there's also a 3-year window on some of these measures. Is that enough time to meaningfully boost supply, given how long some of these projects take to get built?
So this is there's a particularly interesting thing here that I want to note about kind of before getting into the larger conversation about this. So, Toronto is the epicenter of Ontario's housing crisis in the same way that Vancouver is the epicenter of BC's housing crisis. And there's this phenomenon called drive till you qualify. So, vast majority of people want to live in Toronto, want to work in Toronto because it's the economic engine, but they keep moving further and further out until they can afford rent or qualify for a mortgage. And so Toronto is essentially exporting its housing crisis out into further and further reaches of Ontario, which is why we see places like St. Thomas, Ontario have rents for like over $1,000, which, no offense to St. Thomas, Ontario, but it's like, that's a rural area. Why are rents, exorbitantly high relative to incomes? And so for the Toronto specific issue in this 3-year window is there's a construction moratorium in the downtown core, which is the most in-demand area during the FIFA World Cup. So this is a really important construction season when really important measures are being put forward. And we're not exactly going to be able to build as much as we can because FIFA, the FIFA, the soccer body, demands, we need to have this pristine city when the World Cup is on. And, you can't do other kind of city building activities. I would say on the general point, given how far we are behind in terms of the housing supply meeting the demand that there is, 3 years will probably not be enough. I mean, housing affordability has been a top concern for people in Toronto, Ontario, Canada for like, what, 10 years now. You're not really going to solve it in 3 years. There's only so much construction capacity in the city, in the province, in the country. And if this does really stimulate supply, you will end up likely kind of getting to a cap where every construction worker in the province is already working on a housing thing. So even if we have a lot of capital flowing around, if there aren't, hammers to strike the nails, then houses aren't going to get built. But that's an ideal scenario.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I appreciate all your insight on this, Aidan. Let's get to the most important news of the day, which is this drinking water incident with Doug Ford and Mark Carney. This has gone viral, obviously. Tell us what happened and what you saw being right in the front row.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Yeah. So,
What's in that? What's in that glass?
This is 20 proof water. Doug Ford's skill as a retail politician in front of a microphone kind of like, I guess, knows no equal. And he has a great relationship with the prime minister, has a great, like truly great relationship with the mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, despite, some choice comments during the mayoral by-election when I think he called her a crazy communist or like, God help Toronto if she gets elected. But he's really effective at having good interpersonal relationships. And so there's been a kind of like meme going around for, I don't know, like 5 years that, Doug Ford isn't really a conservative because he essentially operates like a liberal. And I guess some of those comments have gotten to him to an extent. So he took a sip of water from the podium that Carney was at previously, said, "Oh, I hope I don't turn myself into a liberal if I drink this."
Oh, Chris. Almost drank your water. Did you have a sip of that?
I didn't touch it.
Okay, I'll take a sip. This isn't going to turn me into a liberal, is it? I've already been accused of being a liberal. Okay, sir. Well, they do accuse me. But anyways, here we go. Sorry, folks.
And then off camera, there was a very funny quip from a reporter at the Star saying, "I think it's too late." So that got the kind of Associated Press gaggle, howling, and it didn't seem to distract anyone at the podium, but because there are professionals in front of the camera and we are professionals behind the camera. But yeah, that was a good moment of levity in what otherwise was a fairly weighty press conference, just in terms of like not weighty in terms of emotional weight, but oh my God, there's so much here, and this is like a truly consequential policy announcement.
That's a great story. Thank you. Last question for me, Aidan, is about the Toronto Island Airport, which we've talked about before on this show. The Prime Minister was asked about it. What did he say?
He said it's a very interesting vision, and there are lots of big possibilities there. So the federal government, the old federal Liberals under Trudeau, when this was kind of like a big issue in 2015, said, we're not, there's a proposal to expand the airport. They said, hell no, we're not doing that. And it, was seen as a policy promise that helped deliver them some of the key downtown ridings in Toronto, eventually, ushering in a majority. But now it seems that times have changed, at least a little bit. The federal government is being quite, they are equivocating on their answers on this one. They are a part of the tripartite agreement that governs the operations of the airport. They would need to sign off on anything. We know where the province stands on this. We know where the city stands on this, even though that doesn't really matter anymore. But the feds are kind of saying, well, we're engaging in a negotiation. We don't want to make premature discussions. We want the voices of our residents in those downtown ridings to be heard. And the kind of direct political calculus going on right now is that there are two very consequential by-elections in downtown Toronto, or one in like downtown Toronto and one a little bit east in Scarborough, but on the water. So that Scarborough East riding is directly in the flight path. The downtown riding is traditionally, the residents there are a little bit more kind of opposed to the airport because the island is kind of seen as like, condo dwellers. It's a good place to have your backyard. So I can imagine that once these by-elections are wrapped and if the Liberals win them, then we will see a little bit more of a concrete statement coming from the federal government about their intentions for this going forward.
All right, good stuff. Anything else to add, Aiden, before we let you go, other than you potentially throwing your name into the ring for the now vacant GM Leaf position?
I jump for joy. I thought that was fake when I saw it last night. I was so happy. I was so happy. Oh my God, my group chats were blowing up. Got on the phone with my dad, like, oh, they did it.
Well, here in the Sioux, we're kind of giggling about it because, of course, you guys fired Kyle Dubas, hometown boy here in the Sioux, and everybody thought, well, I don't know if that was the right move. So I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't have got rid of him.
Hey, look, I'm a Kyle Dubas stan. I appreciate his legacy with the Sioux Greyhounds and his penchant for drafting and signing, former Sioux Greyhounds players. It actually seems to work in a lot of cases.
Indeed.
And we had brighter days under him. So,
all right. Good stuff. Aiden Chimandi from Toronto today. Always good to see you, Aiden. Thanks for this.
Thanks, guys.
You know, the good thing about our setup, we never mix up our glasses.
That's right. We're really hard for you to reach over and accidentally drink.
It would be
mine.
so rude, too.
And we won't tell everyone what we would turn into if we drank each other's cups. What politically speaking, what would happen?
Let us know what you think we'd turn into.
That's right.
We'd love to hear.
Yeah, Closer Look podcast at Village Media. You know, now I forget my train of thought because I'm always losing my mind on what's going on. But the HST changes, right?
Yes.
I always love these big announcements. You wonder about the guy who just finished building a house and now they've announced this full HST rebate. It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And they're going to try to get it retroactively, but it's not going to work.
It is not.
The only thing that works retroactively is scrapping the FOI legislation. That works retroactively.
Still shocking that's
still shocking. More to come.
Look forward to that. All right, closer look at villagemedia.ca. Reach out anytime. We'd love to hear from you. And check us out online at closerlookpodcast.ca. That is our time for this evening. Tonight's show produced by Zach Trunzo. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for your time. Let's do it again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here on Closer Look.
Briscoe and Scott's wardrobe provided in part by Moore's Clothing for Men.